Attention, please. We're gonna start with Mr. Fowles, can you see that we have a quorum present?
Mayor, I do see we have a quorum.
Quorum being present, I now declare this meeting open. And let the record show that City Council Member Sonny Proctor and City Council Member Kurt Bradfield are not with us this evening. Lonnie Waters, would you lead us in an invocation, please?
Lord, as we went through Veterans Day, we just continue to ask you to bless all the veterans. Give thanks for what they've done. Give thanks for what they're going to do in the future, Lord. We just ask you to watch over them and their families. Lord, watch over everyone, all citizens of the United States, Lord, and bless them throughout the holidays. These favor and bless in your name. Amen.
Amen. And Ms. Ann Snavy, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council, you have in front of you our agenda that has been mailed to you. And at this time, I will entertain a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Make a motion we adopt the agenda as presented.
And a second, please.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as presented. Any discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. The motion carries. We have no old business tonight since this is a work session for us, and we will go straight into new business. Consideration and approval of the J.O. White emergency repair of water main and a change order to the existing contract. This would actually be two items instead of one. The emergency repair of the water main, as you can see, council, from your invoices that you have, that was for $50,000 that we approved as an emergency measure to get that done. And I'm proud to report that from the time that it was reported to us that that water main had broken again, that we had it fixed by midnight of that same day. So I want to thank the water department for doing a great job there. The amount of this is $50,000, and I entertain a motion at this time to approve that amount.
Make a motion that we approve the amount of $50,000 to T. Stanco Inc. for the repair.
And a second, please.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by council on that item? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And that motion carries. Now, on the second page of your agenda, on the background, you see that there is an item that would be $31,674.87. And that is a proposal that while we have that contractor on site, that we do a change order, and that change order be for that $31,000 so that we can go across Salem Church Road and tie into a 6-inch main, which will allow us to have a loop for the hospital so that in the event that there might be a breakage between 515 and the hospital, we would still then be able to provide the hospital with water. Now, mind you, that we would be going from one size pipe to another, and it would not avail the entire pressure there as what we would have, but it would allow us to at least have water there, and that's all we can do at this point in time. I'm going to ask Josh Davis, if he will, to bring that forward to council. Josh, if you will, please explain that in words that they might understand, that I might be able to learn something myself.
As of right now, once the 10-inch line's out of water or broke, they don't have any fire or any water for residents, surgery, things like that. So with this, it gives us at least water until we can get the line fixed.
So if I understand this correctly, you please say if I'm wrong about this, it allows us to service water to the hospital no matter if that main breaks between 515 and the hospital side of that T.
We can provide water from Salem Church
If
back
we're-
to the back side of JOI, yes, sir.
If we're tied in,
Yes,
yes, okay. And the price for doing that is $31,674.87. So, council, any questions that you would have of Josh while he's here?
Okay, Josh, so we're gonna be feeding it with a 6-inch line. How far are we from another 10-inch line? That maybe we could eventually run a 10-inch line the full way.
we would probably have to go to the end of JOI and turn back up Salem and go back to 515 and run it all the way back through to give it the 10-inch. But as of right now, we just have the 6-inch there.
And the 6-inch would give proper fire protection.
It won't be fire protection. It's just gonna be drinking water. Drinking water, baths, stuff like that. But it won't be fire protection for the hospital.
Right this moment, if that line breaks between 515 and the hospital, they got no water and they got no fire protection.
No, sir.
So with this, they would at least have water, but
That's right.
still no fire protection until we can fix wherever that break was.
Yes, sir.
Is that perfectly stated?
Well, then my question back to you is, should we run a 6-inch line and then figure out how to get a 10-inch line and complete the loop?
We would probably have to look at the numbers to see that, because as of right now, I don't know how far that actually is. And
Well, as long as we got a plan and a way of doing it, that's what I'm looking at.
as of right now, it wouldn't fall under the contract for a change order. As of right now, it just
And I
stays.
understand it, I'm talking about as a whole.
For future,
Yeah.
we could put a plan together.
This would be the complete cost to make that loop so that they would have water there?
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
Yes,
Just
ma'am.
making this change order?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any further questions, council?
Beverly, you happy with the bid procedure with our?
Well, Josh came to me and we were looking at contract. And the contract was $269,000, and I read through where it talked about change orders and it mentioned 20%. And this is well below 20%. So I felt like it would.
I did run this through our counselor. Our city attorney has approved this.
Right. Yes, he
So I want
is.
you to be understanding, council, that has been, we would not.
Illegal.
And we're not-
And
we're legal.
Lamar would be responsible for drafting the change order, the contract for signature with.
The state contract, the state rules on that are that anything over $100,000. But our charter dictates that a little more fine than that. So there's where we're under no illegalities, but we don't want to violate what our charter says. So, but yeah, we're good with the change order.
Realize sometimes I ask a question when I know the answer.
I cannot
Well,
imagine that.
it's good for the public to understand it though as well, I agree.
Yeah.
So you're good with it in the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the $31,674.87 to do the loop at JOY to provide water for the hospital.
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. Any further discussion by council?
I still would like for us to go ahead and do a study on figuring out how to get another 10-inch down there somehow. I don't think we for right now.
Duly noted, but that will be for a future project. It certainly is.
That's correct.
Duly noted. Okay. Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same. And that motion carries. So you can start with that work, Josh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B is consideration and approval of a bid for debris removal on Gennett Drive. And that is,
That's Josh too.
It's Josh too.
So I want to say a little bit about this. The debris removal that we're talking about is actually concrete and asphalt and a lot of rocks, because what we're going to be doing is just doing a cleanup out there. We went out there and fixed the water line, so now that the customer's out there, the water line itself is back in place, but we're going to be cleaning up that job site so that we can then go out to bid and get a contractor that we hope will come in somewhat lower than the $608,000 that was our low bid on the last time through. So that can be done. We've got some bids on that, council, if you look at your bid packages. One of those, the low bidder, I think, for that is $29,350, which they will take an additional $5,000 off if we provide a truck and a driver to do the haul of all of the debris removal, and I think that we can do that. So, Josh, I'll ask you to bring this to us also.
It's more demolition and disposal, because we've got so many huge pieces of concrete still laying over there that they're going to have to bust it up just so they can get it on a truck and get it hauled out. And it's probably also going to be the culvert pipe that got washed away, and it's kind of washed down the creek. It's still exposed, and you can see it from the edge of the road. So that's going to be hauled out too.
Okay.
Is there anything else over there? But it's the concrete and asphalt and that culvert that needs to be removed, and then maybe we can start looking at it another way.
Okay, so council, at this point, I entertain a motion to approve the removal of the debris and also all of the other items that need to be removed from that area so we can go to bid.
And that would be the $24,665.
$29,350 less than $5,000.
Because we have the staff that can do the
We do have.
So moved.
second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same. And, yes, sir. Can I help you, gentlemen? We're trying to run a meeting here. Thank you. Josh, thank you, and that approval has been rendered. Item C has been a labor of love for a lot of people for a long time, and this is a consideration discussion of the new Employee Personnel Handbook, and we also have to give with it a 14-day notice. So I'm going to ask one of the two people that I know that have labored on this for quite some time, and that would be our Mayor Pro Tem, Jim Looney. Mr. Looney, would you bring this to us?
Council, you probably have heard some rumblings about work being done on a personnel handbook, updating the personnel handbook. It's about this thick. And it has not been a labor of love, but it's been a labor. And we bring it to you tonight, not for approval, but for a consent to put it on a 14-day comment period. It has been reviewed and approved by city attorney. There are some notable changes that you see in your background sheet. And I'll just read them for everyone's education. Please go from 40-hour bi-weekly to 84-hour bi-weekly. Overtime begins at 84 hours. This is consistent with Fair Labor Standards Act. You may remember some years ago, the city had some issues with that, so it's one of the things we wanted to check out. Wastewater employees will be working 12-hour shifts and go to a bi-weekly payroll. Vacation accrual will be capped at 480 hours. 4 employees that have over 480 hours will be paid for those hours. It will be at the employee's decision whether all be paid in the fiscal year 2021 or half in 2021 and the other half in 2022. I would suggest employees talk to whoever prepares their taxes. Vacation balances will be adjusted to current totals based on your service and then accrue every payroll period like the sick leave currently does. And then pay periods outside of normal scheduled hours will be defined. Again, what I'm asking for is consent to put this out for a 14-day comment period. After that, we can discuss finalizing it and move on to the next task.
Beverly, you got comments on this?
Basically, he mentioned the big changes, accruing the vacation every payroll, not waiting until the anniversary date and doing it once a year.
And cabinet too. So.
And cabinet 480. And so that cost is built into the 2021 in case they decide to do it. It isn't reflected in there.
Okay. I was gonna ask about that, because I knew we talked a little bit about that.
Basically, let me just add this, when I first came and we'd go through a payroll and there'd be some special circumstances, there would always be a department that said, well, we get paid this way, and I couldn't find anything in writing, and the old handbook was just very limited in details. So that's why we went to the link that we did to spell out exactly how pay outside of the regular, and we try to be consistent, so the departments were treated the same, because this is employees are going to read this, and they're going to know how the police gets their extra pay, or how streets department, parks, whatever. And
And the
I
police
feel,
and fire do fall under a different
right,
act as
right.
well, so if anybody wants to know that, I mean, I have no problem, but.
Yeah, they used to get overtime after 80, but I sat down with the chief and we looked at their schedule, and it's 84 hours over a 2-week period. So I felt like it was fair, since I didn't make it 86 because that's what the
Yes, we
FLS
can
said,
go-
we
yeah,
can.
Yeah,
But I looked at their schedule, and we've got the firefighters at 212, which is, the maximum they can work.
Right.
So I made the police 84 because that's their schedule.
Any further comments by council?
I would like to thank our finance and human resource folks for their diligence on this. This kind of stuff doesn't happen easily.
No.
well, they put a lot of work into it.
There have been changes upon changes, and I appreciate it, all of you. I'll make a motion, we put this on 14-day comment period so that it can be considered at a future meeting, council meeting.
Second.
Council have a motion and a second to put this, consent to place this on a 14-day comment period. Any further, do I have a motion and a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And the motion carries. So 14 days now, we'll come back and approve that at hopefully our next regular.
Yeah, for December, what I'll do is send this out. Well, I did actually already send it out to the department heads because it was copied in the agenda last Friday. So we'll just ask the department heads to share with their staff and read and bring forth anything they don't understand or don't like or propose changing.
Thank you. And at this point, item D would be consideration of approval of resolution number 2021-14 for the 2021 budget amendments across all funds. And we'll let Beverly and Lindsey bring this to us.
You'll note the budget amendment notes are stapled separately from the budget notes for 2022. It's brief, but it touches on the big changes, not every single change, but the bigger changes. General fund, the revenue, updated taxes based on, collections. And when we amended the general fund in July, we did that because that's when we passed the new pay scale. And at that time, we were looking at a deficit of a little over $200,000. But as the months ticked on and Lonnie's department was just going crazy, well, it wasn't just that, there was a lot of revenue up. The loss was up considerably. I felt like it was better to give a more accurate picture of where I conservatively thought we would end up. And if you'll look at the screen in front of you, you'll see that my proposed 2021 amended is a positive 218 at the end of the year. One of the big changes here that I wanted to note is our liability insurance. It was a little high this year because we had to buy the prior acts coverage, and we shared that across all funds, and next year it's going to be lower. So that was one of the things, when I moved 4 months worth of expense to next year, that helped out with costs in 21. Does that make sense? Because the policy period is May through April. So I only charged May through December to 2021, and the other will be in 2022. So that helped with the cost. Just going down the list, I don't know how you want to do it, if you want to look at each fund, or if you have a question about, you can see here, just these are the expenses, and you go down and you can see the adopted versus the amended. And none of them were really grossly different. One noticeable change is planning and zoning. And planning and zoning, personnel costs are up due to the new position. We had to buy a computer and a vehicle purchase that were not in the adopted. So that took care of the pretty significant change in that department. And of course, legislative, we changed the charter. And y'all still, in my opinion, don't get paid nearly enough. Still pennies. Election, I amended because we haven't gotten the bill yet, have we, Lindsay, for the poll workers? But we spoke with Josh at the elections office, and we came up with an $8,200 cost to pay the election workers. And that's still a bargain for us not to have to do it.
We would still have to pay poll workers and it'd not be shared
Right.
with 3 other entities.
Yes. Well, and you see here, fleet maintenance went down considerably. So there were both sides of changes. Some went up, some went down.
Fleet maintenance going down because of
We are,
having newer vehicles?
no. What, fleet maintenance is shared between general fund and water. Water pays for the person that does it. And it was originally budgeted here for the person. And when we changed it, we moved the person over there and the supplies and equipment and stuff to look at in general fund. We just try to, we could split everything down the middle, and we do that with some people, but he lives in water. His payroll lives in water.
Okay.
So that was that difference. Did y'all have any other questions about 21? It's all funds, and we really just talked about general fund. Let me go down. The technology fund, we had budgeted for Matt to get radios, and we're not getting the radios this year. So we're gonna wait and request that in another year. Fund 210, we got a $3,400 confiscation that I amended to be budgeted. This is the ARP, the 230. We've got $400,000 budgeted next year for the belt press at the wastewater treatment plant, but that will be refunded to us from the USDA grant. But for right now, it is a allowable use of those monies. But we haven't spent anything yet. We're waiting on final rule. And then 275, I adjusted revenues up because they're up. And because revenues are up, expenses are up because we send 66.66% of that money to the chamber. And of course, 321 is the 2014 SPLOST, and we have that earmarked for sidewalk repairs, and that bid came in really high, so we're kind of waiting on that to be bid. And then Fund 322 is the 2020 SPLOST, and I adjusted, because revenues were up, and I mentioned it last time, we had budgeted $65,000 a month as for receipts, and we've gotten anywhere between 80 and 85 a month. So I wanted to reflect that. And then you go down to water. Water, if you remember, whenever I was explaining to you last time, whenever an enterprise fund buys an asset, it gets put on the balance sheet. General fund does not have assets on their balance sheet. They just report assets in the financial report at the end of the year. So any capital item purchased in the general funds like SPLOST on down actually to 100, it shows as an expense. So what I have been accustomed to for years is in the enterprise fund, you book your purchases as an expense because it shows a true operating cost for the year. So the 505 budget and the 540 budget were amended to pull those capital expenses out off the balance sheet temporarily. They'll go back to the balance sheet during audit time. But that is something
During
that... Audit. Yes, yes. But this shows, and what I did is I pulled depreciation because that is an expense that is not an operating expense, but everything else there is. So you'll see that even with all of those capital expenses, water's still on top. And then next year it gets better, but it looks like a huge jump, you know, from this number to this number. But it's really because of us recording the capital expense rather than just it going to the balance sheet.
Well, don't let David say that, or Josh now. So,
And I always like to say that this is our second budget amendment. There will certainly be another one.
Yeah, once we go through the audit.
When they do the journal entries
Yes.
for the audit. And there could be another one by the end of the year if something happens.
Could be, but
So
this is a
not
good,
unusual.
this is a scrubbed number. I did my best. Lindsay helped a lot. And it's just a change in the way she's used to doing things. You know, she'd always been told to put it to the balance sheet account. But if you're running a budget report in the system, the budget report is the income statement. It shows revenues and expenses. Well, even if you're buying capital items, you're still having to pay for it. So it's better to see those on an expense report rather than just putting them on the balance sheet. It
it's a
gives
better
you
picture of what you have.
what you really, once you've brought in and spent, because revenues increase fund balance and expenses decrease fund balance.
It's one of the few times fund accounting, not fun accounting. Fund accounting.
Accounting's fun, what are you saying, Jim? And then there's solid waste. Revenues were up, so we made that change. And expenses were down, actually, so. Solid waste, still having to get a little bit of money to help them out, stay on top. But it is gonna be a little bit better than what we had thought at the beginning of the year. And then the 745, that's the municipal court fines and fees, and that's an in and out situation. So I feel like the revenue's gonna be up just a little bit, and it all gets sent to different places, so there's no fund balance in Fund 745. But that's my
Big
best.
trend up on municipal court from 2020. I wasn't,
Because we didn't have any.
yeah,
We didn't have any court, mostly did we? We're trying to catch.
big difference.
Yeah, big
Yes.
difference.
All right.
Did anybody have questions about 2021? I mean, I can go into the tabs and show the detail, like here's the general revenue. You can see from adopted to amended, and you go down the line and see what's different. I will note that one of the big changes, like I said, was the loss from that to that. And then, where is it? Oh, I'm not down far enough, hold on. Whoop, too far. I'll show you Lonnie's department, how the changes are in that. Building permits. We had adopted 65,000, and I'm gonna amend it to 200, and it could be more than that. But that's a conservative estimate. It probably will be more than that. But those are the major revenue increases.
Council, any questions on any of this?
No, thank y'all for your hard work and keeping it together, because I know that's.
Lindsay, you got any
trying to
comments?
get ready for.
She wants to work on it more. I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-14, budget amendments for all funds.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same. The motion carries. Item E is discussion of fiscal year 2021 budget. And Mr. Looney, I would ask you to bring this to us to start with.
2022.
And
Did I type it wrong on the
No.
sheet?
then,
2022
no,
annual budget.
Yeah.
Again, staff has been working on the budget for a number of weeks now. I really have no comments because Beverly has,
Well, and then we're in between city
Yeah.
managers,
Oh.
we're
okay,
working on the process.
yeah, I hear you. I would like to make a report from administrative staff concerning administrative committee, concerning Christmas bonuses for employees. The administrative committee would like to make a motion that we approve a $500 Christmas bonus for all employees. And if I'm correct, that is included in the budget.
Yes.
We make that as a committee report, so I don't think it needs a second, but
well, I think that at this point, I need a motion to approve that report that comes out. And I need a second to approve it, because once we do this, then.
I'll make that as a motion to approve the Christmas bonuses and $500 per employee.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion by council on that? All in favor, please say aye. And that motion carries. And I think our reasoning for doing that at this period is because we ordinarily try to get that out in as quickly as possible in the first pay period in December for all employees.
And that does have an effect on the budgets that she's going to be presenting.
And that's across the board for every employee.
And then Beverly, if you will, let's begin the discussion of the FY22.
Okay, the way we did it, and Brennan had started this last year, but last year was kind of a strange year because we talked about the budget because we recognized the fact that we needed to increase the millage rate. So our schedule was a little wonky last year because of that. So this year we had, we start in August and the department heads come in and they give their request and they can ask for whatever. And generally they should have mentioned it to their committee because the committee meets with the departments and finds out what their needs are. So the department heads bring in their request and it gets put in the request column. And then the city manager goes down and decides, I don't think this is the right time for that. So he gives his recommendation and then the council adopts what they feel like is needed. So that's what this far right column is the adopted. But of course revenues are revenues. That's the first thing in the general fund. Nothing crazy here. I did go up a little on local option sales tax, not too much.
From what to what?
From 1.7 to 1.8, $100,000.
Okay.
Notice the, on the property taxes, which was a little odd, the personal is up. No, wait a minute. I guess it helps put my glasses on. It was past due is what it was. The outstanding personal property tax was a big jump from last year to next year because for some reason the personal property taxes are a little high on the delinquent list. And we're trying, and a lot of that will get resolved because our tax bills hit the mail today, and a lot of time when the people get their tax bill and they go, oh, I didn't pay last year, so.
I'd like to entertain a little discussion on the fact that we were somewhat delayed on getting tax bills out because we this year put a new program in called Tyler Technologies. I believe that's correct, Miss Ann. And so when we put that new program in, I thought that would be like a 90-day, you could switch over and do a new program in 90 days. And so I asked Beverly that whenever we first hired her in, and because I didn't believe what I was told by a person that I actually really liked and trusted. And unfortunately, her answer was exactly the same as his. And that was 2 years from the time that you begin cutting in a new system until you get all of the kinks worked out. So one of those kinks that was worked out was
Getting our property taxes.
tax bills.
Yep. It took us 2 weeks to get.
So we're 1 year into a 2-year getting everything
Yes.
done, but I think we've done quite a good job.
And really, property tax was our last big thing. We've got.
Yeah, next year that will take we won't have to have an extra 2 weeks to 3 weeks just because the envelope don't fit right. Because all that's been fixed by Tyler Industries, right?
Yes,
Or Tyler Technology.
yes.
So I wanted to put that out there. It's not that we're being lazy or nothing and not getting tax bills out, we just couldn't do it. So now that we can, that should be processed much more quickly next year. And we're going to give you another year of this get all the bugs out, just like you asked.
Yes.
Thank you, I'll shut up now.
The first
Thank you
year,
for mentioning.
the first year has been more difficult than we anticipated
It has
with
been
with
very
the geese. And
Well,
the staff has done a good
Everybody
job.
knew it was gonna be difficult.
Yeah.
But we took that on because
And we
we
love the
must.
software. We love it. It was well worth the purchase. Of course, building permits, going on down, revenues, got them at 250 for next year. And
What line is that on, Beverly? I don't see
It's,
your,
it's right here.
okay.
You
So
know,
you jumped
we've
it
gone
from-
from 65 budgeted or adopted for 21 to 250,000 requests.
22.
22, yeah. And that's a conservative number, because Lonnie said it's probably gonna be more than that.
And for the public, I'd like to also point out that a part of that is not just permits, it's construction aid cost.
Well, cost of construction actually shows up in water. That is a revenue.
So we don't get to see it here on lines.
This is
Lines, the
all
biggest thing
permitted.
that you do does not show up on your department.
This is all permitted. Cost of construction aid goes through Rachel.
Yeah, it
In the
goes to
front
water. And when we get to water, I'll show you what that is.
Very interested in seeing what that went to this year.
I know I'm skimming through this, and y'all just, if anything pops out, you know, question-wise, ask. It's all pretty standard, you know, nothing really big changed. I will note that the transfers, we normally budget a transfer from hotel motel, transfer into the general fund, and Lindsey said, you know, that for years had not been done. So that's why the Fund 275 has a fund balance, but those monies are used for tourism.
And some of that money goes to or could potentially go to our downtown development authority for certain things. And others of that, one of those, I know that we spent some money out of that for the contract on
Yes.
the lights on downtown. So I'm not upset that we wound up with a little bit of money left in that account to spend. Thank you.
And I'll show you when we get to Fund 275 how that works. So looking at, you know, revenues, 4.7 up to 5.5. That's from adopted, the amended 5.2 to 5.5. About a $300,000 difference for next year with taxes. And if you recall, when we adopted the millage rate, we're added a $54,000, and that's if 100% gets collected, but that's usually not the case until a couple of years after. So when I budget property tax, I budget 98% collections. And here's the graph that shows, make this bigger. Yeah. It shows you how the pie is cut up. You know, the biggest is your taxes. And it's sales and use tax. That's made up of not just property tax, it's lost. And if I can hide, hold on. You know, you can never, okay, here it is. So the sales and use tax, the 2 point, this is made up of I can't do anything with y'all watching it. It's more than just property tax. It's automobile taxes, it's mobile home, of course we don't have any of that, but intangible taxes, real estate transfer taxes, all those things were up. A lot of real estate action. So there's that graph. And did y'all want to go division?
I mean, automobile taxes. Last year we had some burden because of changes in state law and how that was shared. Has that caught up with us now?
Lindsay, can you comment on that?
Yeah, TABT tax.
Oh, it is, we did have the big decline in it, but believe it or not, we're not back where we were, but we are,
Seeing an increase.
yeah, we're
Okay.
seeing more of an increase than.
That was about a $200,000 decline, was it not?
Yes.
Over what,
It was
One year to the next.
it was an issue last year. And,
Yeah, I mean, you can
I'm
see
glad
right
it's
here,
correcting itself.
From the actual 2019 to the actual 2020
yeah,
was over 100,000.
Yeah.
And it's, 185 to a budget of 221 next year, so, or no, 120.
120, we're still not back up where we
So
were.
it's sneaking back up.
Yeah.
Okay, it
As long
was
as there's
significant.
vehicles out there for people to buy, we'll be able to.
Right.
Yeah. Buy every vehicle you want if you don't want to chip in. Okay, good.
Well, looking at, I guess, expenses, we can go to this is the requested. And I did make notes by department on what the changes were. So legislative, actually the budget, my notes don't match. Let me see something real quick. Okay. The increase here, obviously, is we're going from that to that. And then professional, I really don't, Lindsay, how can we budget legal? I mean, it's a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
well, let's see if I quit calling him every 10 minutes. And every single item on here was what we want.
But I sure do
That
like
might be
his
something, but-
answers, and they're
but-
correct.
You know, we
It is
run-
hard to predict that, though.
Yeah,
depending on
yeah.
what's
We
going on.
pretty well run everything through him
We do.
that's of any questionable nature whatsoever, and I don't really want to stop that process.
No.
No.
So that's really, you know, those two things are the increase in that department. And then executive, this is the city manager and myself, and this is shared.
Where's your little cursor? I can't find it again.
Oh, it's right here.
Okay,
So there's a little bit of a decrease because of the vacation payout for this year. And that's what's really funny about, you know, looking at, why are we going down? Well, anytime a person leaves, they get their vacation that they have not used.
And we're not paying the city manager now, so.
Right, right. We're,
Yes, we are.
you want to report that like you should?
We are paying the city manager.
Oh, we're paying him what he's worth, is that what you're saying? I might be overpaid in that regard. Thank you very much. So now, we did want to talk about the water revenues.
okay. We'll go on.
I have forgotten.
One note about the fire department, this had me scratching my head. Salaries, you know, we did the increase in the pay scale. So the 2021 amended was up quite a bit, but then when I did the request, it was down, and I figured out, of course, this includes the vacation buyout for one person, and it's a pretty big hit. And then the request, before I had requested, we have probably 10 names on our list for, we call them volunteer, but they're classified as part-time, no benefits. And I had budgeted 1,000 hours each for those because half of, 2,000 and something is 1,000. So I realized that was over budgeted, and I looked at where we were right as I was doing this just a couple of days ago, and they're only at 77%, and they should be at 88% if they were, you know, on target. But now overtime is going to be really high because whenever they're short and people have to fill in for shifts, that's overtime. So overtime is going to be high until we get that one position filled. And I also, on these, I wanted to put down at the bottom of each one of these spreadsheets the positions that you have in each of these departments. So you know, you've got 3 shifts at the fire department, and each one has a certain number that work, but we're really only utilizing 4 part-time people for volunteer firefighters. So if we can get some more people to work, then it'll cut down on overtime.
Yeah.
And another big change that I wanted to, we used to, in animal control and Lonnie's department, planning and zoning, we used to divide his time up between the 2 of those. But now that we have Ryan doing the building department, we have divided his time up, and all of Lonnie's time gets charged to planning and zoning. So that budget, it grew quite a bit because I'm not splitting Lonnie up, and we also have a new position in that department.
And Lonnie does a lot more than just planning and zoning. Thank you very much.
That was one of the departments that had a pretty good increase, and you can see from 211 to 347. Well, that was what they requested. This is what city manager recommended. And if y'all wanted to, I mean, if you look at what was asked and what was recommended, I will note that in the fire department, not fire, police, and Kurt knows about this because I asked Matt. I didn't want this to be a surprise. He asked for 3 positions, 1 in CID and 2 in patrol. And what that would do is it would have their CID, a 3-person CID team. And if they added 2 patrols, then they would have 3 people on shift on the night shift. These are night shift people. And they have 2, they have an A shift and a B shift. I had to make a map to understand this. But if they added 2 patrol, then they would have 3. They would have a lieutenant and 2 patrol officers overnight. Right now, it's just 1 of each. But that was, and we've talked about cars, and I can show you. I know the police have gotten a lot of cars this year because each officer's going to be assigned a car. It hadn't been decided on take home or anything like that, but we felt like if one person was responsible for, a certain vehicle, they would take better care of it, it would last longer. And this 5 vehicles, I can show you how Matt explained that. Hold on.
We just approved 3 more cars,
Right.
and for them to order those.
Yes.
So that's all that I know is coming out of there right this moment.
update on when we might get any of them?
I asked Matt, he was in here earlier, and he said the Explorers would be in the fleet. When did he say, this next week?
Probably next week.
Next week.
They just got finished with all their equipment, I believe.
Yeah, they're still with them.
But the others,
The Tahoes, when they come in, they still have to go through the outfit.
right.
So that's still going to take more time.
But this request for 5 vehicles, it would replace it would replace 3 with high mileage and create 2 pool vehicles for backups, like if something got wrecked, or the pool vehicles would be the higher mileage ones, just for a spare. And then all of the, officers would have their own assigned vehicle. The police department, their positions, They have 19 in the police department. The CID officers and fleet manager are 80-hour-a-week employees, but they do work overtime on occasion, especially CID officers when there's a case. And then the customer service, 2 people, their time is shared between police and municipal court, and then the assistant chief and the police chief.
The CID officers doesn't fall under the 86-hour.
They do.
They do.
They do. And we don't pay them overtime until they work 84, just like the rest of them.
These are all things that will be discussed in our council committee at some point. Obviously, we're not looking to approve 3 new positions, so.
Yeah, and that's how it gets brought up, they ask for it, and then it spurs a discussion. It may not happen this year, it could happen next year. But operationally, he felt like if he had one more person on the night shift, it would be a lieutenant and 2 officers. I'm not sure, how much activity happens at night.
When we have police officers, I'd like to have a couple more on the streets,
Right.
that actually have been needed for the last 2 years since I've been here. And we can't get them, so.
I feel like I'm jumping around, I'm sorry, y'all.
Finding people that.
So now we're gonna go back to that water, we're gonna look at revenue, right?
Oh, yeah, but, street, let me just say, the street department, talked to Adam. Adam asked for 2 side-by-sides and 2, utility trucks and 2, zero-turn motors, or lawnmowers. And he's got some lawnmowers that are aging and needing a lot of repairs. One of those lawnmowers will be designated for strictly parks, and the side-by-side strictly parks. And then the other side-by-side would be for special events. I don't know that they need 2. We cut 1. We did say leave 1.
Cut one of the 0 turns also.
Yeah, we did.
But now we also had a water proposed 0 turn, and we put that and left that in, so.
Yes, we did.
City as a whole, total, we had 2
2
new
new,
0
yeah.
turns.
There was 3 requested and we said 2, yes.
2 until you get a new city manager. So.
Yes, and then, let's see, what else? The park administration, that budget kind of jumped up, but we have 2 people that are assigned park duties, and they just weren't being charged to the parks department. They were being charged to street. So I've got 2 full-time positions here, half in paving streets, half in parks. And for this, that's where the utility truck and the side-by-side and 0 turn show up. And the side-by-side for $10,000 and then the 0 turn for $12,000. I know that those things can be $20,000, but I told Adam to get me a good price, and we don't need a Ferrari, we just need something that's reliable. And he likes the Kubota because he said the Kubota machines can be serviced locally. And this utility truck, I put 3,500. It's bigger than just the regular F-150s that we normally get. It's outfitted for grass mowing, so they can store their equipment on it and use it just for grass mowing. And if you recall, when we did the bid this year for grass mowing, a lot of places that get mowed by staff, a lot. So I felt like it was a good idea to help them out with their equipment. We just need bodies.
And I do not disagree with that, so.
Okay.
Part of that's in streets and part of it's in parks.
Yes.
Okay.
And the problem with the parks is that most of the time they're out there on the streets, because the only time they go to parks is when we have an emergency or something, so, we really need 2 more of those employees there.
Right. And there's
that.
some vacancies, especially in Adam, or in David's department.
Yes.
Okay, so on to water.
We're trying.
We're trying. He's
Starting to think you don't have water on that thing, so.
Oh, it goes in order, see, 201, that's technology surcharge. This is, you know, we're gonna have a little bit of a fund balance, so the radios can be addressed out of this fund. We did budget for the new telephone system at the police department, and we budgeted $25,000 for that, and it ended up being just a $4,000 increase because it's a monthly charge. You don't just like buy the phones. It's part of the service. So that ended up saving us a little money. Do you know if they've gotten them yet, Lindsay? It takes so long to get anything anymore. And then, okay, here's the ARP. That's the $742,000 we got this year, and then what we'll get next year. And right now, the only thing I have is the belt press. That's been ordered, David. Any idea when it's gonna come in?
No. They keep, every time you talk to them, it's something later. So, who knows?
This is hotel motel. The revenues are up. I went up just a little bit more. People are starting to travel again.
And those
And,
revenues are up because of the entry in big canoe as far as the county goes. Theirs went way up
yeah,
because people now have to report bed and breakfast.
yes, yes,
So the same thing's true in the city, so we're getting more out of that too.
yes. And then if that goes up, then the transfer to other agencies, which would be the chamber. That goes up in relationship. And then here's the SPLOST. We have a fund balance there for sidewalk project.
That's the 2014.
Yeah, that's the 2014. We don't get revenue for that anymore.
Mhm.
Only thing we make there is a little bit of interest income in the checking account. But that's that. And then 322 is the 2020 SPLOST. And I did up the request for revenue, just based on the way things have been ticking up. I didn't put anything for LMIG, Lonnie.
Yes. We've been averaging right about 68,000 a year
Yeah.
for LMIG, and it goes up and down just a little, but
But we'll get it for next year, or I didn't know how,
we've got the paperwork to send in for next year.
okay,
It has to be sent in before February the 11th, I think it is. And once that's sent in, then they'll send us a check for that.
so I don't have anything there because I didn't know what it would be. So that would be an item to be amended later on in the year, based on what we actually got. And then, let's see, these are the projects that I have attempted to, off of the projects list for next year. Got the 40,000, which, yeah, was that 50? Did that come in at 50? Okay, so that's a change. 55?
David, what is about 55?
It
For the
was,
136 project?
36?
it finished up at 55.
I don't know what the finished total was on it.
And
Okay.
I think we've already paid that, so.
Yeah, and that's in this year.
That wouldn't have been all of it, I mean, we done some of it.
Right. And the other amounts, like, see, right here, payments to others, the 85,000 is what we sent the county.
For our
starting.
portion of the
Yes, for the pipe.
136.
Yes.
correct.
So anything that, you know, the 422 or 44200, those are road projects. So here's my list of projects, and of course, this will likely change sooner rather than later, based on cost, but just to come up with a budget and what items we could pay out of this budget. I did this list. Here's Peril Park. That's, just to get us started. And then the TAP grant match. that would come out of SPOS, and the Doris Wigington Park, that would come out of SPOS. And then here's the remaining 5 police vehicles.
Mhm.
So, I can't say where we are on all these projects. I know that, you know, these bigger ones we haven't really spent any money on yet. And here's the.
Code Creek repair, David, Josh, where are we at on that?
We have the 6-inch in, they've been sick, and they're just finishing up, they're about to start trying to get up the hill to finish the 10-inch now. So, they've been sick and been out and kind of slowed them down.
Okay, on to water. I was pretty conservative on water receipts, and that's probably gonna be a lot different than that, but I don't want to overestimate revenue. I would rather underestimate revenue. And a little in sewer receipts. Leachate was down, so it went from 700,000 to 400,000. So I just bumped it back to 500,000 for next year. Hopefully things change and it won't rain so much. And right, David, he tries to teach me water and sewer. But whenever it is really rainy, you just can't dump leachate because you just can't. And let's see, I think that's really it. Here's the cost of construction, and again, this is conservative. And I've got 200,000 for this year, but that's up from 30,000. And you know, cost of construction is 3,600 per unit, and then what's it, 4,000 an acre? I can't remember. I just know it's 3,600 a unit for when you're building a subdivision or whatever.
That's very close.
Yeah, so this number, depending on, you know, when projects get started, when they're finished, this number could be a lot different. But again, I was trying to be conservative because I didn't know the timing of some of these developments. And so really I've just budgeted about a 300,000+ increase in revenue. But you see where it went from that to that, and that was when we increased our minimum rate by $10, that increased revenue. Of course, sewer administration, a real big change. Sewer maintenance, we had 2 positions that we moved out of this, so their picture looks a little better. And we talked about, David and I talked about, and I talked to Lindsey about it, you know, combining this sewer maintenance with water maintenance. But we decided that we found something that in the charge accounts that led us to believe we needed to keep those separate, so we just kept them separate.
Where did you move the salaries to that you took out?
That they went to water distribution and water supply. Well, yeah, water supply is putting the pipe in the ground. Distribution is getting it to you. So, okay, here's the pollution control plant. We have, get down here to the staff. I think there's 3 there. Laptop. Okay, we have a vacant position there, and that's where Roy and an operator are paid. And if you look at the salaries, this is, you know, budgeting for the vacant position that we have not filled. So it's up.
So now I think we got some applicants off of the
the Coca-Cola job fair?
Right,
Yes.
two of them, I think. Of course, we hadn't hired me.
Grit sludge removal is up. Lindsay, can you comment on that?
The sludge removal.
Yeah, sludge removal.
I think part of that, David can help me, their roll-off is not working, it's torn up or something, and y'all are having a contract with Waste Management to haul the sludge.
Yeah, the same thing with the rain. Solar drying beds don't work when it rains every day, so you're having to do all of it through the dumpsters instead of using the drying beds like we usually do in the past. It's been the worst year at the wastewater plant since I've been there. I've never seen, it rains every 2 to 3 days, almost like clockwork. Just enough where nothing will dry out.
This is where I'm budgeting for capital outlay expense, whereas before it was always put on the balance sheet. And this is, site improvements is engineering for wastewater treatment plant expansion, and of course, any vehicles or equipment. Nothing in the budget. I asked David how his equipment, you know, what his needs were, and he said he had equipment, he needs people. He did ask for the zero-turn motor, and it's in there. Really, that's about it for him. And that's also the principal portion of the capital lease. That's another thing on the any debt. There's no long-term anything on the general fund, because general fund is 12 month. Okay, so you don't record any long-term debt, but you do present it in the financial statements. So in the enterprise funds, when we paid the note, we would debit the liability, the long-term liability. But if you put it on your income statement, you can see what a truer cost of operations would be in a year. You're going to have to make those payments. So are you bringing in enough money to make those payments, both principal and interest? So that's why, and this is standard. This is what I've been used to doing. And at the end of the year, you would do a journal entry to remove that expense and lower your liability. But this just gives you a picture of what your true operating costs are. So that's really the increase in that department.
One more thing back on your site improvements on the wastewater treatment plant. And I think that, David, did you not tell me today that we are permitted for how much?
1.56 MGD.
And our current is how much?
0.78.
So we are at 0.78, and we have a little bit of leeway there. But when we get all of this done, we should be up to 1.56.
And we have been approved for.
And we have been approved for that discharge, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that makes that a definite. We just have to get it done.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Barry.
I really feel like I'm breezing through this.
It's okay, we can stop you.
Okay. Water administration is, let's see, get down here to the positions. Okay, this is where we split executive and finance. They get half and half, because this one of those, it's like overhead. Water can't operate unless they have payroll and legal and somebody to send out their bills and collect their money. So that is a true, it's allowable. So we take those services that we kind of, it's almost internal service. And we share those costs with water and general fund, because we do the same thing for both.
Payroll, purchasing,
Yeah.
personnel, nothing's gonna happen in water administration if you don't have the support. And this allows you to charge for that support.
And this is,
Common business practice and
right,
corporate
it
America,
is.
so-
And that's why I wanted to put the note down here, so it's clear that, you know, those departments are shared between water and general fund. And then again, the principal is on here. And then supplement, the money that gets sent to sanitation, it comes from the water fund, and that's what this is right here. And it feeds directly from sanitation, because that's what they need to not be having a loss every year. And it's getting better.
It's getting better.
The meter reading, we have a decrease because they got new trucks last year, so nothing like that budgeted, so their budget went down. And then water supply, this is where David has a lot of vacants. He's got a crew leader, equipment operator vacant, a supply technician, and a supply equipment operator vacant. So I budgeted for those at full cost, if we get them. Hopefully we can get them, but that's the increase in, you know, that budget is hoping that we get people here.
He has the most openings in any
He
department.
does. He does. And here's some contract labor, you know, put that in there. Projects that need to be done. And then the water, you know, this year, the purchase of water was down lower than what we had budgeted initially, but we don't know what next year's gonna bring, so we upped it back up again to cover ourselves in case we did need to buy water. And that's about it.
So I want to talk about the buying of water, one thing here. If you're talking about buying raw water, that's a lot cheaper than if you're buying treated water. So David, what would your estimate be for our cost to treat water?
As far as 1,000 gallons?
Yeah, that's a good look.
Probably looking at about half what we're charging, so you're probably looking $1.30, $1.40 range.
You think it would be that high?
Yeah, because that's with including employees, you know, but
Yeah.
you could take some of that employee out because they do both here. So, I mean, you could really reduce that number if you wanted to, but an actual number, from what's on the budget, yeah, you'd be looking $1.30, $1.40.
And
That's pumping too now, that's getting it to the customer also.
correct. And now, so that's to take raw water and go treat it. Let's say that we buy from an adjoining county, and I'm not going to go to Cherokee, thank you very much for their water, but let's say we buy from an adjoining county. What do we pay for that water per gallon, per 1,000 gallons?
Calhoun had offered it to us at $1.70.
And
Which is a very, very good rate, if we can get it here, and, you know, the water doesn't continue to get harder like it is now. We have a few customers on the county now, and every once in a while we get complaints from them about the hardness of the water. On 53 West, we have some of the people on it, and the water from Calhoun is considerably much harder than the water here.
or in Gilbert County.
Yes. Yeah,
So Gilbert has the same, almost the same rate. The reason I wanted to bring that out was that you can't just look if you're buying water and say, okay, that's gonna cost you $1.70 for 1,000 gallons, because it's really not. It's the difference in what your processing is and what that price that you pay. So it's amazing that it's as close as it is.
Yeah, they can offer that rate because they're pulling out of the spring. And that spring requires very little treatment versus when you're pulling out of a surface water plant, the treatment, you know, there's more treatment there.
All right, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Now I want to go back one more time to water, and I'll get this over, okay?
Okay.
But when we were looking at the $250,000 that we were talking about cost of construction aid,
Yes.
so I think it's $3,500 per cost of construction aid roughly. So if I take that $250,000 and divide that by, I think 3,500, I could be wrong on that. I come up with roughly 71 houses.
Yeah, there's probably gonna be more than that, but
So my point is that if you take a look at what we have out here that is permitted, then that 250,000 doesn't really, in the next 2 years, it's gonna go way up. Okay, so just want us to be aware of that, and we'll factor that in, you know, as it comes in. They only pay for this when they pull the permits. Okay, thank you. I'm
okay,
done now.
and again,
That's all I'm gonna do.
you know, I
I just wanna make sure
recognize,
Lon gets his
yeah, that
fair
250,
share.
I mean, that's arguably understated, but like I
Wait,
said, we don't know
I understand.
what happens in construction.
Well, that's why we adjust these budgets, because
This
they're
is
kind
why
of
you have budget amendments.
Yes.
moving targets, so.
Okay, so, water treatment. Okay, there was some vacation buyout in this department, so that answers the, you know, lower part of it. Let's see, what kind of vacancies does he have there? Okay, this is where the director and one of the technicians, and where Katie and Roy split their costs between water treatment and wastewater treatment. Difference here, you know, infrastructure, equipment, and vehicles are showing up on the budget, where before they were in capital or on the balance sheet. And let's see. Nothing exciting there. That's really the difference, is the, you know, the change in personnel, and then showing the capital items on the budget.
We lost
It
another
actually went
person.
down,
We lost another person in water treatment too,
really.
yes. He put his notice in last week.
Okay, distribution. What we got? We have one vacancy there, 8 positions. And the infrastructure, this is the 269, that's the JL Light. That's where we got that budgeted.
It is.
And we just added, what, 31,000?
31,000.
Yeah.
But for your information, they've got about 800 foot of that that's already done.
Yeah, so some
And
of
I
that
think
will
about
get issued.
another 400 foot, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we've got about another 400 foot to go out there, so.
So,
You
it,
could say 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't put my life on 2 weeks, so.
they'll, and that could end up being a 21 expense. So it would move into this column. Of course, this repairs and maintenance was up because of emergency repair. We don't budget for emergencies. That's what fund balance is for. But you have to take care of your fund balance. And then, let's see, meter purchases, that's probably gonna go up, don't you think? Meter purchases would go up pretty significantly next year.
Yeah, at least 30%.
Yeah, so that's, I really didn't put anything there because
Well, now, we have applied for a grant
yes.
to replace our entire meter distribution system.
And that's
So
through
it-
that's through the ARP money, that was separate funds that the governor had, and the status changed from decisioning to, today it was changed to,
Is it in progress or something?
it's being reviewed. So the decision.
We'll know by the end of the year.
Yeah, and if it gets approved, then we'll have to make a presentation, and that's like before Thanksgiving. So we'll know in the next couple of weeks what's gonna happen there, but that's I think it was 2.3 million grant.
It was.
Yeah, and that would replace all of our meters with AMI meters. And that is the best, most accurate meter you can have to preserve your water supply.
So
That would certainly help tremendously.
Yeah, and I told Kim if we get that grant, then she's gonna have a party. We're gonna get her a cake and everything. So that's really it for distribution. That was the big change there, but overall, nothing real exciting. The bond, okay, that's the principal on the bond, and that kind of blew this budget up. And I'm not sure why we don't budget that in water bonds. That may be something that I have to clean up with the journal entry. Because it would make sense to me that water bond would not be paid out of distribution, but out of the water bond department number. But really, this is for the money that when we refinanced and had the 700,000, this expense category was for us to track how we spent that money, because the bond, said that those were water projects. That's why we have this little list of course, the Lily tank. I've got that for next year. It could be this year, but the money there, it's there. It's in fund balance. It's in the checking account. So we're just waiting to get these
Work done.
Yeah, get them started and get them finished. And I'm not sure if it's going to be this year or next year. Likely next year. Because it's cold and rainy, and I don't think you can paint when it's below 60 degrees, can you?
Yeah.
That's that.
How much was left in that fund?
400-something thousand. It's,
Was it not all spoken for though?
yeah,
Why is
it's
it
all
not,
spoken for.
why is it not done then? What do we lack in it to, I mean, we're doing the raw water pump and then we've got the Lily tank bid out.
We've got, the raw water intake, I've got 130,000 in this year. Will it be this year or next year?
That's this year.
Yeah, okay. And then I got the 250 for the Copeland water line. And then
It's
50.
been about probably 50.
So I need to move, okay. And that's, like I said, at the end of the year, once we see what actually gets spent, and we can amend the budget. And then this Grandview water line, 50,000, that's in this year. So next year, David, all I had was 80 for the tank, and then 125 for Cove Creek.
Another 125 for Cove Creek?
And see, that's where I wasn't real sure, because I've got Cove Creek 117 in SPLOST, and then I've got Cove Creek 125 in the bond.
That's what I was going to ask. It'd be great if we could do the other pump at the creek.
And I did not, there's, something I did not put on revenue for water is the FEMA that Lonnie's working to get. I don't know how much that's going to be. It could be a couple $100,000.
Actually, I tried to get you those figures today,
Yeah.
and the lady that I was supposed to be talking with, I could not get her on the phone. I've left her a couple of messages.
Okay.
But the figure that we put in for totals about 517,000.
Okay.
But that don't mean even if they paid the full amount, we would only get 75% of that.
Okay.
So, it would be less than 517.
We would have to know.
But there's 6 different projects that we're working on, and each one of them are at different phases. There's one that's getting real close to being finished. I'm trying to find out that information so you can have it and be more precise with your numbers.
So I don't have revenue at all budgeted for that because I just wasn't sure.
Code Creek was 111,220 is what our contract amount was.
Yes.
So we've got.
I said 117, I was wrong.
We got plenty in there, and I think we may have that twice on the budget, so we need to go back and check that.
Okay.
I don't know if that's,
And I have a lot of notes from where I've talked to
Yeah.
people. And I think those buckets have kind of shifted because we weren't real sure if we're gonna get it, when we're gonna get it.
but that's, hopefully, will be done. If they come back, I think, no, they'd let. Yeah.
Okay, where were we up to?
I think water bond was your last one.
Yeah, water bond. Okay, so water fleet, this is where I was telling you about the mechanic. He gets paid here for his personnel, but most everything else we pay out of general fund. Of course, there's a capital lease that gets depreciation, which is not really operating. Then solid waste, we're getting close to the end. Those revenues were up, so I've carried forward with them being up just a little and, not having to get so much money from water for admin support. And then here's solid waste expenses. We have a driver and 2 collectors, so it's 3 people in that department. And I asked Adam, there was 4, and he said they didn't have plans to fill the other one. But that's really, and the principal, it made the budget go up just a little. And then the municipal court, this is where everything that comes in is dispersed. It goes to all of these agencies on a percentage basis. The transfer goes to the municipal tech fund and then to the general fund. So those revenues and expenses always match and they have a 0 fund balance. Questions?
Council, if we could think, would we have a question?
Millions of them.
I know, and I have millions. I wake up in the morning thinking about this stuff, especially the projects. And thank goodness we have the 2 new staff that are handling the projects because.
I will tell you, they're doing a great job. Not a good job,
Great job.
great job.
There was no way council can understand this without spending some time with it at home. At least I can't.
Right.
And I will spend some time with it, but I think it's to the point that we can start scheduling public hearings.
Yeah.
And
And
we can't vote on this until after the public hearings. And
Correct.
we can make changes up until then. I think I need some time to.
And I try to, the budget notes were not very descriptive, but I tried to just make notes on things that were different.
That's good.
So we have a public hearing scheduled right now for December the 6th
Yes.
and a December the 20th adoption date for the budget. Jim, does that fit your schedule?
Yes, I
Do you
think
think that's
if I had a motion, it would be that we
I'll be out on the 20th.
approve this for
That's just for the-
publication
Yeah,
and for public hearings. And we can finalize sometime before adoption on December 20th.
good.
Once I get the, better revenue numbers, some questions that I wasn't able to answer.
As we've been told, it's a process. So did you make that into a motion?
I did.
And a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to enter into this public hearing process for the next 14 days and then to meet back on December the 6th for a public hearing. Any further questions by council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And the motion is carried.
And that also gives an opportunity for those who couldn't be with us tonight to study it.
It's the very same as the council. It's
I will, additionally, I will make sure that I get Mary the the newest version of the draft, because it's a little bit different than the last one. Think it's developing as we speak. So I will make sure that this draft is on our website for people to look at.
And get Dan a copy of that revised draft. Okay. At this time, council, I entertain a motion that we go into executive session.
Make a motion, to go into executive session.
Second.
And we will go into executive for personnel. We will have a press release when we come out.
Make a motion to come out of executive session.
Have a motion to come out of executive session, second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Looney. I'll entertain a motion from your committee.
I make a motion that City of Jasper is able to announce that they have entered into final negotiations for a conditional offer of employment for Miss Sonia Jammes as Jasper City Manager.
I have a motion. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Any further discussion by council?
Just as an announcement, what this is saying is that as the final candidate, we open this up for a 14-day comment period. We finalize negotiations with the candidate, and at our meeting at whatever time it will be called after the 14 days, we can vote on the contract and approve the employment.
Thank you for clarification. Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Council, I entertain a motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.